This is the all-new version 7 of Dash module number 5, or DM5. In this video, we'll take a look at the operation of this module in normal running mode and in show mode. We're going to use the module in standalone configuration in this video. In a later video, we'll look at the additional functions that become available when we link the module to a PC or other device capable of serial bus communications, and the graphical interface that's been developed for control of the module by this method. Before applying power, let's look briefly at the displays that we have on DM5. At upper left, we have 3 5-element bar gauges and associated yellow indicator LEDs that we'll use to indicate the status of each function being displayed by each of the gauges. At upper right, we have a 4-digit numeric display. Immediately below this 4-digit numeric display, we have 4 pairs of green-red indicator LEDs. And along the bottom of the display, we have a further 4 indicators, which will be labelled power, normal, auto, and pursuit. So what do we display on the various sections of the display on DM5? Let's go ahead and apply power to the unit. Let's start off by looking at the 5-element bar gauge displays at upper left. Each one of these can be configured to display one of up to 8 different functions. Those 8 functions will include 6 parameters that are available to the unit, 3 being either hardwired or from the serial data bus, and the other 3 only being available from the serial data bus. As an alternative to these 6 parameters, each gauge can be configured to display show mode, which will be a continuously varying value whose rate and range are defined by user options. Finally, the 8th option for each gauge is a function which we call Direct Display Access, or DDA, which enables us to individually switch on or off any element of any of the gauges. Let's look at the numeric display. The numeric display can be configured to display one of 9 possible functions. Those 9 functions include the 8 functions which can be displayed on any of the bar gauges, plus a 9th function. That 9th function is a frequency display, which can be used to display the frequency of a 0 to 5 volt input hardwired to the unit. The green-red indicator LEDs, which are all displaying red right now because there's no connection to them, these are configured to display the status of 4 ground-switched inputs, which will display red on the corresponding input if the input is open circuit, or green if the corresponding input is grounded. These indicators at the bottom, the power indicator, displays whether or not the voltage connection to the unit is in range. That is between about 10 volts and 14 volts. The normal, auto and pursuit indicators in turn display ground-switched inputs as well as these. The functions of the bar gauge displays can only be changed when the module is connected to a computer via a serial data bus. The function of the numeric display can be changed by pressing a hardwired push button wired to the unit. Right now, the numeric display is displaying throttle position in percent. This last digit displays a symbol which corresponds to the unit being displayed. So when we're displaying TPS, or throttle position sensor, on this display, we have a P for percent. The functions which are set by default on these gauges are: the upper gauge corresponds to supply voltage, the center gauge corresponds to throttle position, and the lower gauge corresponds to air temperature sensor. So let's just vary the throttle position sensor input and see how the displays change. We can see that as we increase the throttle position, so the bar gauge on the centre increases, and so does the numeric display. Bringing it down, now let's switch the numeric display to the next function, which is air temperature. Air temperature is the lower bar gauge. We can also change the temperature display between Fahrenheit and centigrade by a push on this button, but a longer push this time. So now we're in degrees centigrade. Finally, if we press again, we display supply voltage. We use a U instead of a V because we're using a 7-segment display, which can only display certain characters. If we press this button again, we go into the first of the 3 parameters that are available only from the serial bus. The single horizontal bar corresponds to the first parameter, but if we're actually using these parameters, we'll set custom values for whatever they correspond to. Second parameter, third parameter. Another push gives us a show mode display. Another push will put us into direct display access mode. When we're in direct display access mode, this will only be updated when we get serial commands to specifically set individual elements on or off. A final push will give us a frequency display, which is currently not connected, and another push will bring us back to throttle position sensor. The green-red indicators, as we mentioned, display ground switched inputs. So let's just have a look at how those vary. Any inputs can be connected to these. And finally, along the bottom, we have the normal, auto and pursuit indicators, which are ground switched indicators. Let's just have another look at the bar gauge inputs, because we actually have on here input range validation. If we take the input out of range, which we've set to about 95%, you see that we have a warning indicator come on here to mean that this particular input is now out of range. If we take it down, we've set a lower range limit of about 5%. We get an audible warning, and we get the corresponding status indicator coming on. We've done the same thing on the temperature displays. So temperature display we've got set to a range of about, let's see, 50 centigrade down to minus 45 centigrade, or about minus 50 Fahrenheit to 120 Fahrenheit. Finally, if we look at the range values on the voltage input, that is set to a range of about 14.5 volts down to about 10 volts. And you can see that when the voltage input goes out of range, the status indicator for the voltage bar gauge goes on, and the power indicator goes off. So this is effectively an inverse of the status indicator for the voltage input. But of course, this will continue to indicate the validity of the voltage display, even if we're not displaying voltage on this gauge or any of the bar gauges. Finally, in normal running mode we can switch over to show mode, which puts all elements of the display into show mode by a long press on another push button. And that switches this into show mode. In show mode, any of these sections of the display we can control the speed and range by user options. Another push of this button puts us back into normal running mode. And those are the two mainly used functions, operating modes, of DM5, normal running mode and show mode. In a later video we'll look at two other operating modes which are primarily used for diagnostic purposes: input test mode and output test mode.